Fortnite.
Hey everyone, welcome back to more Flesh and Bad, and today we're going to be doing some more Marlynn. But before we get into the Marlynn gameplay, I did want to do a quick channel update. So we're working really hard on this end documentary, and we've got a lot of work still cut out for us. I was thinking about taking like maybe the next week or two to just solely focus on like getting the Zen documentary out the door. So that means that we might be having like a little bit of like a break in the content. But what I was thinking about doing instead of like doing normal recorded videos is if people prefer streams, I think that would actually like cut down on a lot of the work we have to do because a lot of it's just like editing work for the videos and stuff like that. But this would probably be in like a week or two if we want to like take a little bit of a break to kind of like focus on the Zen documentary, which we're very close to actually like getting out the door. So that might be kind of on the horizon. So if people are interested in seeing just some like random streams like Jarl, Marlynn, like just any fun deck, we might even do like an F tier Friday stream. That would be kind of fun. But yeah, if there's any interest in streams, let us know because that might be a way for us to like cut down on the amount of content. Alternatively, we can just like release less videos in the week, but that also kind of feels bad. So I think that we might try out like a week or two of streams. Let me know what you think in the comments. But yeah, with that, let's go ahead and get into the Marlynn deck. So I think this is the exact same deck from last week. I haven't really changed it very much. And I feel like we also didn't really get a chance to test out a ton of our like spicy little attack, like the Drop the Anchor or the Imperial Seal command this week. So I wanted to kind of test those out on Talishar, see if I can like pair into like a Gravy and maybe test out like Drop the Anchor, and then maybe play into like a more defensive deck to test out the Imperial Seal command. I think like these cards are very much like flex right now. I think that like also kind of in contention or like CNC like maybe in that slot, maybe like an extra blue over the Imperial Seal command, like the main deck. Maybe the Imperial Seal command just becomes like the extra port side exchange or something like that. But overall, I still kind of like the overall shell here. I think that like the blue base feels pretty good, and also just like the amount of buffs and pumps also feels quite nice. I especially like having just extra pumps in the sideboard in certain matchups. But I've not played a ton of this deck or like iterated on it since that last video, so I wanted to kind of spend a little bit more time this video to try to like iterate on the deck, see what I like and don't like. So yeah, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the games. All right, so we're pairing into Kassai. So this one's a bit of an interesting matchup. We do have the ability to like steal gold, which is always nice. I think I want to lean towards first in Kassai, although I could see going second with Dominion first. I want to actually just play more with cross wrap, so it's kind of why I'm leaning going first. In general, into warrior, let me actually just give them a good look, have fun, so they don't leave. But in general, into warrior, I think we run it something like this. Is this running tipples? I think we should actually cut the tipples and lean more towards just the full-on buff package if we're going first, just because the tipples like kind of unnecessary. Make sure we're running cross wrap going first as well. And I think this looks good. Basically, what I'm trying to do here is like maximize my buffs. Notably, getting the King Sharks out of the deck does make like the buffs like a bit worse, just because you don't have like as big an arrow to put it on. But I think it's still probably the worst card in our deck at this point. I think you still just want to run a clean 60 into warriors in general. But basically, our turn one is probably just going to be like filtering pass. Okay, what do we have here? So what is the ideal arsenal here? So we don't really have a card with big game trophy shot yet, but we could still arsenal it just as a buff. Could just fish with the quiver and see what we hit. Maybe just try to filter towards something. If we hit an arrow, it's a little bit awkward though. I think that just getting the cards out of hand is like maybe reasonable. All right, we hit a bluefin. I suppose we can just send in the bluefin as an option. We would be giving them a bit of filtering, but I think that might be worth it just to pop the drop and anchor in Arsenal, or alternatively, we can put the bluefin in Arsenal. Maybe the bluefin is actually better off in Arsenal because we don't really have like a guaranteed way to load an arrow, so putting the arrow in Arsenal might be the priority. I think that kind of makes sense. All right, see what they got. All right, just a fate. So they'll get a bit of deck knowledge here, and then so it seems like they're going to opt a card on the bottom. Okay, that's fine. They basically got one card filtering here, and then we're left with a Harpoon in Arsenal, which is quite nice because it means we can Skullbone. All right, and this is a surprisingly okay hand. Maybe not like incredibly ideal, obviously, with double 3-oak, but we do have the potential to like Arsenal another 3-oak, play out Gold the Tip plus 3-oak, and then Bluefin. Another alternate option is we can like Goldfin. We can gold the tip into bluefin go again into 3 of a kind, depending on what we see. But I think we're just supposed to basically take this damage here. They will be making some copper, which is a bit annoying, but they're going to pretty much guarantee get copper anyways, so not the end of the world, but a pretty solid start from them. And yeah, the copper can be quite scary in this matchup. Vigor token as well, also pretty decent. But I think we're just going to pass here. I don't see any reason to give the first gold-baited hook charge. But yeah, very nice turn 1 from them. So I think our play is basically going to be starting with Skullbone to look at the top card of the deck, try to filter, and then we 3-oak into Gold Tip plus Bluefin Harpoon, and hopefully that's pretty annoying for them. What I'm hoping more so than anything is that this gets armor out of them. Okay, Seafloor Salvage. Do we want to draw that? It's probably fine, although I'd almost rather play this first. Unfortunately, we don't really have like a way to draw it before the 3-oak. I guess maybe leaving it on top is just fine. So we'll go ahead and Gold the Tip, 3-oak, already draw Premeditate, some other stuff. That's a-okay. And then I think we are going to be pitching what here? Can pitch the Seafloor Salvage, and then we can either pitch the Pre-Med or pitch the Redfin Harpoon. So 3-oak is basically our guaranteed way to load. So maybe we don't need to keep the Redfin in hand, and we can just send in the Bluefin. And I think keeping a hand of like 3-oak plus Pre-Med is probably where we want to be. We can also force some cards out of hand for the Kassai. I think this is pretty well worth it. It's kind of an interesting block, which maybe signifies to me that they have like a blue in hand plus a react. Otherwise, I feel like they don't really have much incentive to block this, but it seems like they just had 2 hit and runs. Anyways, interesting. Curious on that block. All right, but this is like the perfect hand. So this is kind of what I wanted to do with the idea of basically like having 3-oak plus like 2 buffs in hand. Unfortunate thing here is they do have a CNC, but we can probably cash in or Sea Lace if we want to use that. I don't think that Sea Lace is that impactful of a card that we need to like double block this and just like mess up our next turn. If we really wanted to be greedy, what we could do is we could like keep we could sorry, I'm trying to think through the line here. So one thing we could do is like double block with the King Kraken drill shot, but I don't love that either. Yeah, I think that holding on to the King Kraken is kind of a big deal for us. So I think what we're actually going to be doing is blocking with the blue plus the gold-baited hook plus the Sea Lace. Obviously, it feels a little bit bad, but they are playing CNC Kassai, which is also like a little bit interesting. I don't think have I ever seen CNC Kassai? I don't think I have. I normally am used to like Nourishing Emptiness or something like more relevant, but it's actually surprisingly good here. All right, so we're going to start with Skullbone, so we get information about what we're drawing. We definitely want a blue on top, so we're going to keep that. And then I think we're going to just double pump here. And this is basically what I'm trying to do with like 3-oak, is I want to play like 2 buffs before I 3-oak, and then 3-oak ideally into a blue. So we didn't unfortunately hit with everything here, but this hand actually works out kind of okay. So what do we do here? We put the King Kraken in Arsenal. Unfortunate thing is we drew 2 yellows, which is not a terrible fail state, but we are pitching away to Codex for Frailty for later, which does seem a bit unfortunate. So I think we're going to go ahead and King Kraken here, and then just send in with the Harpoon. Do we want to put the gold-baited hook on it? Seems pretty likely to hit. They have 4 armor, plus 4 cards in hand. It's coming in for how much total? It's coming in for 16. I feel like we should maybe hook, but it is definitely a bit greedy. I think I'm going to go for it, though. Like, if they have any actions in hand, I think that we're borderline guaranteed to hit here. If they have, like, double react, it gets awkward. But they are blocking with an action. I don't think this gold-baited hook is all that bad. I think we're more likely to hit than we are to not hit, at least is my logic. Could definitely get punished here, especially with like armor and like double D react, but fortunately we are able to hit here, which is quite nice. So we get to take a draw swords out of their hand, which is probably pretty painful, especially with just a yellow. And then we get to Arsenal Portside Exchange, which is awesome. And yeah, I think this worked out actually quite well for us. They're also tapped, which I guess is funny, but notably does not do anything against Kassai. I wonder if they templated this nowadays, if this card would have been a tap ability. I could see that. I mean, it doesn't really matter. Like, once per turn action is functionally the same thing as tapped. But it happened. Alright, so starting with a hit and run, maybe just doing a double saber turn and arsenaling the draw swords is the line I see. Because we know their hand is like run through plus draw swords, right? Oh, seems like they're gonna go for Kassai activation here. So we know they don't have anything here. So we could just cash in a bit of value with the Sunken Treasure. And then we hit and run notably doesn't apply unless you've already attacked with a weapon. So I think we're just going to take the opportunity here to hopefully turn something over to get us a little bit of extra value. So we have the gold to tip, which I think is probably going to be the play. Unfortunately, they don't have any yellows in bin yet, but not the end of the world here. We also stole their gold, which is quite nice. And then I think we're... So we could actually let them have a gold so that we could like steal it later. But I don't know how necessary that is. I almost wonder if just giving them a gold was fine. I feel like given that they know we have like gold baited hook, maybe they're incentivized to like crack it, which I don't love, but they already have like draw swords for that anyways. So maybe I'm like fine with them cracking gold. I think I'm gonna just let this hit because like having the extra resources could mean that we could do something with this turn, which otherwise we might not be able to. So I think the play next turn is we're going to obviously opt with our Skullbone Cross Wrap, Portside Exchange, discarding a Harpoon maybe. Kind of depends on what we see on top. Ooh, Conqueror is not a bad draw. I think we were going to leave that on top. We know they have a draw swords in Arsenal, so we're not going to get punished by React, which is also nice. And then I think could also discard the Riches of Triple Donny, but that seems kind of like a... Is it a meme? That might not be a meme. You can also pitch the Triple Donny, draw, Portside. I feel like there are a couple options with this hand. I'm thinking about it. Can we... So we're drawing in a Conqueror. We pitch Triple Donny. I'm trying to think if there's a way that we, like... Let's draw off gold first. So draw that. Then we can conquer... I think we draw off gold one more time. Like this. Draw the Murderous Rabble. So I think now we can conquer, pitching the Riches, play Murderous Rabble, and save Portside for next turn is one play. So I guess we'll start with the gold-baited hook on the Murderous Rabble. Does that make sense? I think that makes sense. All right, so we get a take aim on top. That's not the end of the world. I think there's also... I feel like there's some world where we're able to make a Harpoon, pitch something with Portside, and load the Harpoon, and then send it. Oh, wow, they just let us steal their gold there. That's incredible for us. So, yeah, I think we're just going to follow up with Conqueror now, which should hopefully force some cards out of hand. Or at least, like, maybe card plus React plus Dynamo, or maybe, like, 2 pieces of armor plus 2 cards out of hand. Having the knowledge that they have the draw swords in Arsenal, I think, is really good for us. Oh, seems like they maybe just want to do that. All right, blocking with a trot along. I assume they maybe have React here or something. Okay, that all you got, I guess, makes sense. Okay, yeah, pretty good turn cycle from us, I think. Not like the best possible turn, but passable, I think. Still have that Portside in Arsenal, which is a bit awkward because like we're not getting a fresh Arsenal that we can use Skullbone with, but I think this still kind of works out. I'm trying to think if there's another line where like we're able to like use the Portside to like load a Goldfin and then shoot that as well, but I don't know if we had enough resources, at least guaranteed. This hand's surprisingly good. We can port side. There's a couple options with this hand. We can port side, discard the gold to tip, and like make a harpoon load. That's one option, and then we could like take aim, fire it, and then arsenal whatever we draw into. Right, playing the draw swords obviously, which makes sense. Still don't have many yellows in pitch. All right, there's blood on our hands, pretty solid as well. So this is looking like it's going to be a pretty good turn from them. But fortunately, they don't. I guess they now have Kassai activation if they want it. But it seems maybe a little bit too late. So I think we just need to take the opportunity to kind of tempo them here. So we're going to let the Centauri Sabers hit. They'll make their golds, but hopefully we get the chance to steal it on the next hand maybe. And they're just going to be swinging at us for another 6 if I understand this correctly. Which is definitely still pretty solid. But we do have the copper out of the way, which is fine. So really not the end of the world here, I don't think. They do get Dynamo Refresh and get to keep an arsenal, which is quite nice. But other than that, I think we're actually not in that terrible a spot. So let's start by making a harpoon. So I don't think we're actually going to be discarding the harpoon. I think what we might be discarding instead is either the gold tip to generate a gold this turn, or we can discard a take aim. I think both are reasonable. So the problem here is if like we don't hit an arrow, then obviously the gold pin gets a lot worse. I think we're supposed to start with gold. Does that make sense? That might actually make sense, because if we draw another blue, then this hand gets a lot better. If we don't draw blue, then we're drawing a red, which is most likely in our case a buff. Ooh, 3 oak might be nasty on this hand. So let's... Okay, now I think we can fish for an arrow. So this might be greedy, but I think we're going to just go for it. So we're going to port side. We're going to discard the Gulfin. And then try to keep a hand that's triple buff plus arrow. We have 2 gold that we can use to bail us out if we whiff. This is going to be greedy, but I think that this is what we need to like get us ahead in this game. So we're going to start with take aim. What are our chances of hitting an arrow at this point? It's like pretty high. So what we can actually do is we can load a take aim. Oh, this is actually interesting. So we can load a take aim in Arsenal. And what take aim allows us to do is we can play it from Arsenal, and then we can put a codex into Arsenal. We didn't know we pitched 2 codexes earlier, but we still have 1 more, I think. So I think that there's a lot of merit to arsenaling the take aim so that we can put any card in Arsenal, not just an arrow. So I think I'm going to do that here. Then we're going to gold to tip. We can actually skullbone this now, too. Oh, wow, this is actually a really good play. This is why I like take aim a lot in this deck, by the way, is just because, like, reload is such a strong ability, especially if you're playing more cross wrap, which I think is correct in a lot of matchups. Like, I generally think that cross wrap is very good into anything that's like slower, like Kassai, where you just want to like fix your draws a bit. And the added combo of like just getting a free like arsenal that you don't have to use gold for is very powerful as well. So now we're going to 3 oak. We can still play this take aim in our arsenal, and we're hoping to at least hit 1 arrow here. So we hit a King Kraken. That's fantastic. Now we just need to think about what our arsenal is for next turn. So we now probably have to arsenal like Sleep Dart, or can also arsenal the Bolton Shot. I think both have their pros and cons. I think I like arsenaling the Sleep Dart a little bit more, because it might make their... it turns off the Kassai ability, which means they have to like pitch to Sabers, which gets a little bit more interesting. So I think I like that. And then we're going to pitch the Sunken Treasure and the Bolton Shot to send in the King Kraken. And I think we're also going to throw the gold-weighted hook on it as well. I guess we can also get another opt value, right? Wait, did we opt this turn? Isn't this a once per turn? Wait. I thought we opted earlier, did we not? I think I talked about opting and then never actually opted. Or maybe I like undid or something. I think I just like completely blanked on that. But I guess now we'll get our information. All right, drawing into a bluefin. I feel like we have better draws, so I'm just going to get rid of it, and then we'll put the gold baited hook on it, and then fire the King Kraken. So this is kind of what the strategy I found into decks that are very defensive is you just want to run, I think, as many 0-for-3s as possible, just so you can like force through, like you can force as much damage through as possible. Because you're more likely to like guarantee the on hits the more 0-for-3s you basically have in your deck. There obviously is a little bit of contention with like if you're not like if you draw too many 0-for-3s and you don't draw enough buffs, then it gets a little bit awkward. But I think that is still very worth it. All right, so we reveal a glint out of hand. I think that's fine. They basically have to give us the full hand, and they also have to give us their gold, which we're pretty happy with. This hand's a little bit unfortunate, but we can block a little bit, which is at least nice. I think so. We have a couple options here. I think it might be worth it to just take an off turn here and like block a bit, and then maybe Arsenal like Yellowfin Harpoon. The awkward part about this is that we don't have our what do you call it? Our Sea Late Sarong anymore. So maybe giving that up was actually a little bit of a misstep on our part, but I do think it was maybe correct given that they had the CNC there. What do we want to do here? I think we're maybe just firing off a Sleep Dart and like blocking 6 and trying to Arsenal the Yellowfin Harpoon. They do have a number of yellows in their deck, so it's like probably not terrible. I think we're just supposed to like give up the hand when the hand's not really doing us any favors, I think. It's the kind of the problem with any deck that runs like a bunch of blues and fab is that you sometimes hit a hand like this and it's like kind of just not worth playing a lot of the time. So let's cross wrap and see what there is to see, I think. So we have the option either to Tunic. Ooh, pre-med is actually interesting because then that threatens the on hit of making a ponder. We do also have gold set up, so we don't need to like keep an arrow in Arsenal anymore, although it is good for the skullbone value, obviously. So I kind of like that. Like, what if we kept pre-med, drew a card, drew the pre-med, played Sleep Dart, and then we just keep Tunic up for a later turn? I think that's pretty reasonable. We've used 3 Oaks. We still have 3 Codexes left in the deck, so we're bound to draw into one eventually. So I think we're going to leave that on top and maybe just try to fire that off here. So pre-med, and then send this in for 6, which maybe is a little bit awkward in terms of breakpoints for like Valiant Dynamos. So I feel like they have to give us like 2 real cards here because their armor really doesn't like cover this efficiently. I think this kind of makes sense. It's not a very like high value play or anything, but if we get to turn off their hero ability and also make a ponder token, I think we're kind of happy with this. So we Arsenal Yellowfin Harpoon, which is not super exciting, but I don't think it's terrible. All right, and they're going to come in with the Nourishing as well. So unfortunately, we don't really have a way to block this, but that is what Nourishing does sometimes. We are going to get to go Conqueror into maybe a Yellowfin if we manage to like string together the resources. So I think this is fine. Obviously, giving them a bunch of cards in hand is pretty terrible, but not much you can do sometimes. So let's start with the Skullbone and form our draw here a bit. We draw a Seafloor, or we're going to be drawing into a Seafloor Salvage. Do we want that? So if we crack a gold, what does that do for us? We can Conqueror. We'd have an extra 1 on this hand. Does that help us? It's close to helping us. Could also just go Conqueror into pre-med Yellowfin, and then maybe we don't have to actually keep the Seafloor Salvage. I feel like we're just trying to draw towards like our last Codex at this point. Bottoming the 2 early Codexes was a bit unfortunate, but I feel like we have better cards than this. So I think we're just going to skip it and then go pre-med, which will notably also apply to the Conqueror, and then just send in. We haven't seen a ton of reacts out of them, so I'm expecting they at least have some amount of reacts, but hopefully just not an Arsenal at this point. Ooh, another Command and Conquer is scary. Yeah, I feel like our deck does not do particularly well into Kassai with Command and Conquer. It's something I have not seen a ton of. So now we also have another option of whether or not we want to Marlynn, assuming that we think that we're not going to hit here. They do have to give us 2 cards to deny the hit, which is pretty relevant. Could theoretically throw the gold-rated hook on that, but then that just makes them block out with 2 cards. I think we're just threatening the ponder here. I guess it would demand 3 cards, right? Or I guess at least 1 card plus a D-react. So maybe this is demanding 3 cards anyways. Still feel like giving the gold-rated hook here is maybe a bit greedy. Maybe it's not bad, though. I feel like they're like kind of priced into blocking this anyways because they want to probably deny the ponder token. I don't know. I feel like I expect them to block this here, but it seems like they're not. Okay, this is not terrible for us, honestly. All right, so reveal spoils from hand. That could be scary. Big game is a good arsenal. Okay. This is not going too bad, I think. As long as they can't threaten lethal here, I think we're actually in pretty okay shape. We haven't notably used our tunic a ton this game, I feel like. Alright, so they're going to go for spoils. So here, what do we want to do? What's the most efficient play we can make? We can theoretically block with the big game trophy shot, deny some copper if we want to. I guess the question is, do we think we're dying on 2 cards? So, like, what are the best 2 cards they can have? They still have a couple Blade Flurries left, so they can have double Blade Flurry. And that would probably threaten lethal. But it wouldn't, they wouldn't be able to threaten lethal on this Chain Link, though. I feel like we're maybe supposed to just take this first swing. One thing we could do next turn is we can draw a card, pop Marlynn, and then send a Goldfin Harpoon at them. If we're assuming we're blocking with the big game trophy shot. Let's go ahead and say no blocks to this and see if they have a Blade Flurry. Right, they do have a Blade Flurry, so that's not ideal for us. Now I'm wondering if we need to like just keep the hand here. So we have a couple options. We can either block with big game trophy shot, which would what is like the card that they can have here that kills us? It's basically like into the swing, or just any like 0 for 3 pump, which there's not a ton of in Kassai, but there are enough where it's probably scary. So I guess the question is, if we present 6 plus 4 plus 2, so that'd be 12, are we going to be winning the game next turn? Or do we need to like chance that they don't have anything here? I think we might need to risk that they just like don't have anything here. Because if we aren't able to send like a disruptive arrow, I think the chances of us winning this game go down by a pretty significant. Like if we're just sending a Goldfin Harpoon, I think that's a losing game, right? So yeah, I think that's fine. I think we just have to take this. Like obviously maybe the better play is to just like block Skullblown. But like what does this save us from in particular? I don't know if this does save us from anything. Like I think like the card we most likely die to at this point is just Into the Swing, which would mean we have to give up big game trophy shot. But I think maybe we just give up Skullbone just in case they have something right. Like I don't think this actually saves us from anything in particular. You know what? I think I'm not going to block. I think I'm just going to say take 4. And if they have Into the Swing, I think we die. I think we just need to keep the full hand here. Otherwise, we're basically just losing the next turn anyways, because they're presumably going to be blocking some amount. All right, well, we go to 1, so it looks like our risk did pay off there. So now we're going to have to have a really good turn. We've not seen any of our codexes yet, or I think we bought them too, but we need to find basically the last one, I think. Let's go ahead and start with the Skullbone. All right, Murderous Rabble, does that help us? I don't think it does. I think we need to do better than that. So let's maybe do the big game trophy shot now and just try to go max greed and see if we can get him here. So we have the take game in Arsenal, so we don't need to load off the big game trophy shot. So let's go ahead and start by cracking Marlynn. Could also big game trophy shot do what? Could discard a like discard any other card from hand that we draw. So maybe we actually want to start with a gold here. Because we need to basically be popping all of our resources turn, so I think this makes sense. Right? I think we need to just draw off gold here. Alright, we draw King Kraken. That could be good. So now we big game trophy shot off Tunic. It's a very interesting spot to be in. I do think this is definitely a tougher matchup, especially made a bit more tougher by CNC. Like, I think that CNC is definitely uniquely bad into us, or uniquely good into us, rather. All right, let's pull the Tunic. And we need to hit some gas here, I think. So, big game trophy shot. We get to draw before we discard, which is the least nice. All right, so this hand is basically what we were aiming for. We just need to see if this is going to be good enough is the only problem. So we're going to fire the drop the anchor and take aim as well, loading the King Kraken. And then we're going to fire it off and see if it gets there. We are basically putting +4, +10, +14. So it's a 20 damage arrow. So this is going to force at least, like, how many cards out of hand at least? Probably like, I think it forces at least 2 reacts, which we haven't seen a ton of yet. Like, I'm expecting them to have at least some number of sync as well, and we've only seen 1 fate. But this is about as good as it's going to get for this turn, and this is what I was kind of going for by not blocking last turn, is like we needed basically all the help we could get to fire this thing off for 20, right? If it's not enough, then I think we can kind of just attribute this to being a bad matchup, which I think it is a bad matchup. But I do think that like we kind of play to our outs here a bit, which I kind of like. We'll also get some hand information out of them, assuming that this does hit. All right, so we get a bunch of gold. We tap them, reveal an unsheath, which we actually discard from hand. Wait, actually, that might have put us back in the game. Now we draw Codex. Wow. This is a crazy game. So now we get to gold the tip, hitch, Codex, and grab just another King Kraken, probably. We're going to go ahead and get our opt value. I think Sleep Dart is weak, so we're going to bottom it, and then we'll gold beta hook because why not at this point? We're just trying to go for lethal. There's actually like a compelling reason to why not, is so we can like force blocks on some other card that's like more impactful. But I think like this probably does kill here. If they have react here, I guess they can potentially just reset, but it looks like we basically just got him. Wow, that game was kind of crazy. I feel like Skullbone put in a lot of work there, and I did feel like I kind of played that game like a bit slow, but you do have to kind of like take your time to like make some decisions during this deck. Looking at our deck, so we're going to drop back into that big game trophy shot and Codex or Frailty. So the last card that we're drawing into was Drop the Anchor, which in this configuration is basically just a 0-for-3 pump that we bring in. Mainly, it's just good against Scrape. Like, theoretically, this card is good against Scrapey. I still need to kind of like test that a little bit more, but I think we actually did like a pretty good job there. Yeah, I also, did we not have the what's the card called? Not the amulet, the stamp, like the oh god, Tegan's gonna make fun of me for this. The what is that card called? The royal card. What is that one called? All right, I'm just gonna look at the deck. What is this one card? We didn't draw the Imperial Seal of Command. Sorry, that was the card I was blanking on. But overall, I think we drew like pretty well. I think the codexes, so we had to pitch early, were like pretty rough, and this last codex was quite late in the deck. But overall, I think like we played to our outs there and we got the win. So I think that was a pretty good game to at least showcase kind of my plan into Kassai. Just we want to go first, try it ideally. And if you don't go first, we probably do run Dominion going second. And then basically just try to like kill him with the big pumped harpoon using a bunch of 0-for-3. So yeah, with that, let's go ahead and get into the next game. You got a Kano. This matchup obviously quite rough, but we're gonna go ahead and play it out anyways. I think in this matchup we just want to be as kind of go wide as possible. So definitely want the King Krakens. I think the Conquerors are bad. 0-for-3 buffs I think are good. Maybe like 2 Tipples and Riches seems about right to me. They're going first, which is obviously quite rough as well. But we'll run it, see how it goes. This does kind of feel like one of the matchups where conceptually, it feels like we don't have that bad of like a time, but in practice, I feel like it's actually quite rough. We do get to start on the 3 oak, which is at least nice. They do get a clarity potion early on. I feel like clarity potion has been falling out of favor since the new amulets kind of released, but starting off with 2 potions obviously is kind of pretty backbreaking. So we're gonna start with the 3 of a kind. I think we're gonna try to fire the bluefin harpoon unless we find like a King Kraken or something better, and maybe just try to like arsenal the redfin harpoon for next turn. All right, what does this hand want us to do? I think it's still just bluefin, right? And maybe we just like IP with gold the tip and then arsenal like a redfin harpoon for next turn. Oh no, not terrible, but not super thrilling, especially going second rather. So we could theoretically get aggressive with the gold baited hook. Like, I think there's no downside basically. We basically just get to generate free gold, which is at least part of the fun of this matchup. Getting a gold every turn is quite nice. All right, they're going to Kano. Probably have some number of blues in hand, but if we're at least forcing them to do action on our turn, then we're kind of happy with that. All right, so we get some gold for a future turn, which is nice. We reveal a Kindle and a Blazing Ether. That's terrifying. Maybe Redfin Harpoon was better, but my logic was like holding on to Redfin maybe is stronger for like a later turn. Oh wow, we're pitching the Blazing here. To Kindle, sure. Kindle, okay, I don't like that. Pass is fantastic. Okay, we're maybe saved. So let's start with the Skullbone here. That could have been very, very bad for us. Sleep Down on top is actually nice because that means we get to like gold the tip. Codex of Realty is like pretty bad. So I think we're gonna go like this. And then draw the card. I guess the question here is like, do I want to go off of having like a card in hand? Like, because we could basically have a red in hand and they would have the option to kill us. I think we maybe have to take the risk. They don't have any E-Pots out, which is at least nice. They did just get rid of 2 Kindles and a Blazing. So like, I feel like the chances of us actually being able to force through the Redfin are pretty real. I think we gotta go for it. I don't think there's really a better play here. If they have it, they have it. But like, they really don't have a ton of the infrastructure, I feel like, set up. Pitching 2 yellows is definitely a good sign for us. Although those are 2 pretty good yellows. E-Pot as well. They could be going for it here, but like, definitely depend on what they have in Arsenal. They did pitch a Blazing, so maybe that's supposed to signify that they have another one in Arsenal, and then like they could do like Sonic Boom Lesson, Blazing, and that would be pretty rough. So they add the Wildfire. That's fine though. So they still have a Kano floating. They have Lesson on top, or they have Sonic Boom on top. So I guess we're going to go ahead and quiver this. And then we can just pay 1 here. They're not pumping it, which is at least nice. It's only coming for 2. I mean, they can still do a lot of work here, especially. So, like, the problem is, like, if they lessen after this, they need more resources than this, right? Like, I think this is just not enough. Because they can definitely lessen here, but how do they get the Blazing? Like, how do they use anything up lessen? More importantly, right? They need some way to like get resources. Like they could Kindle, but they should have done that first. I feel like this is fine, even if it's Blazing from Arsenal, right? This is just 14. We go to 14, and then they've used all their resources. Like we could still easily die here, but like that was a pretty underwhelming wildfire turn. So I'm kind of glad I went for it. Alright, we need to draw pretty hot next turn, or we need to at least draw something to do. I wouldn't say this is something to do, but it's maybe not as bad as it looks. So I think we're going to start with Marlynn and then Portside Exchange. I think we're going to maybe just try to load Sleep Dart, so it makes it a little bit more annoying for them to play out stuff on their turn. So we'll discard the Goldfin, net another gold, load Sleep Dart, and maybe just Arsenal Sleep Dart for next turn. We could also Arsenal the Bolden Shot. That actually might be better. I'm going to Arsenal the Bolden Shot because it's more likely to be able to push through, and if we get Go again on it, obviously quite nice as well. We did make a gold this turn, but it's notably not a pirate attack, so I guess it doesn't really matter, but we could try to trick him here. Make them think that the Sleep Dart has like an on-hit. It does have an on-hit, just not like a on-hit make a gold. Anyway, we will turn them off on their turn, which is quite nice. Oh, actually, they lose it this turn as well, which is pretty powerful as well. All right, we got a Crucible. What's worst case scenario here? Like Spindle or Burn Bear, I guess, are like the worst, but even those aren't terrible for us, I feel like. Yep, Spindle is pretty good. Okay, so we definitely need to AB some of this. I guess the question is, what are we ABing with? They are going to be able to use Kano on their next turn because Sleep Dart only applies to this turn. I feel like the safe play is just AB3 and then maybe just like big game trophy shot to draw some extra stuff, like off of our gold, making like a harpoon, discarding it. So I feel like we're maybe just supposed to pay with the red fin here and then maybe try to arsenal like the Sleep Dart or like sandbag it, basically. I think that's reasonable. I don't know if we're going to be able to threaten lethal here, which is a problem. So the bottom two cards. We've tried to minimize as much information as possible that they have. But we'll start with the Marlynn here. And then we also get some cross-rep value, which is always nice. All right, is Premeditate a good draw? I feel like we'd rather just draw any blue at this point, right? Just anything we can sandbag in Arsenal. So I think the play here is going to be starting with the big game trophy shot, pitching a blue. We are kind of going shields down in this particular moment. I think that's within the bounds of acceptability. So we're still holding up 3 Roostresses here. And then we just get to fire in Bolton Shot, like potentially Arsenal this next turn. The problem is we're not netting gold, which is a kind of issue. Could also hold back the drop the anchor, but I don't think that's doing us any favors. So I think we're just supposed to drop the anchor here and fire it. Like, I don't think it gets much better here. We are putting them to 1 if we do this. But yeah, obviously not ideal. They do also have that Clarity Potion, which is scary. 1 card top, 1 bottom. Blocking with Wildfire, I love to see. Okay, I think we're in the clear here, maybe. So you get to Kano here. Getting an E-Pot, it's pretty good. Yeah, it's definitely not bad. And we'll go ahead and pass here. All right, perfect hand. This is exactly, I think, what we needed. So how do we start this off is the only problem. Well, we definitely take game, right? Take game. Then I guess we should have maybe cross-rep first, but I don't think it matters a ton. We do want the blue. So then we keep that. And then we pitch Codex. Draw towards the blue. It's so interesting. I guess we try to threaten the 3 oak first, because that keeps us the most shields up. So let's start by pitching Codex. In case we need it like a backup arrow, we can fire the Bolden Shot. Okay, I think this works. So we can now big game Trophy Shot. We have all the resources in the world to pay for whatever they do during our turn. We've seen 2 wildfires, so they need to hit the last wildfire basically here to kill us. So I think we might just barely be able to get over here. I have a video as a good draw. Let's go ahead and get rid of the drop the anchor. And then is it greedy to go for bow here? This is currently coming in for 13. They have an E-Pot up. I think it might be correct to just fire this here, but I obviously don't love it. Let's go ahead and put the hook on it because it's basically guaranteed to hit at this point, I think. And we'll fire it off here. We have 2 blues left in hand. We can arsenal the Bolden Shot for next turn. I think all in all, this is fine for us, and it looks like they're going to maybe just try to go for it here. Floodgates is potentially a good start, but they do need the wildfire to make that work. They also don't have access to their arsenal. I think we might be in the clear here. Oh, Kindle is definitely one of the arsenal targets they can't play. Yep, that's not great for us. I think we still block most of this, though, right? They can Metacarpus, but it's only pumping by 3, and they need to fully surge it. So we can pay for this. We get to Eye of Ophidia as well. Tipple, is that a good draw? It probably is actually a good draw. I think we'll keep the Tipple, but I think we're just killing them here, right? It doesn't really matter. I think there's a theoretical world where we have 2 reds in hand where that actually does kill, but fortunately for us, we did draw a decent number of blues on that hand. And it seems like we just barely got there. Okay, it's still definitely like a pretty rough matchup, but I think it's like playable at least. Like, I don't know. I feel like a lot of Marlyn's matchups you can describe as playable, which is maybe not a shining endorsement of this hero, but like overall, I don't think it was like that bad. They still needed to take like a bunch of setup to actually get to where they were going, and we did have, I feel like, a bit of agency in like how much we were going to commit to like overpower and stuff like that. Like, I think the matchup is not as bad as it initially seems. All right, but yeah, that was a pretty good one to end it on. So, unfortunately, again, I'm not able to record like a ton of content lately just because we're focusing really hard on the Zen documentary. But yeah, if you're interested in seeing like some streams and stuff, that might be one way to kind of like give us a little bit more time to work on the Zen documentary, because we're basically getting to the point where we're like kind of putting a lot of the finishing stuff together, which is really cool. But yeah, if you want to like, if you'd be interested in like seeing streams like the Kano stream that Tegan did recently, that's definitely something I'm potentially looking at as just a way to reduce the workload on both of us. But yeah, if you want also like more YouTube videos, feel free to voice that as well. Like, we're not just gonna like immediately go to streams if there's like a decent portion of the community that wants like videos and stuff like that. We're still gonna probably put out videos even during that time as well. Yeah, but that's the Marlyn list. Again, I still think I really like it. Like, the only suspect card I'm still kind of testing is Imperial Seal of Command, which I think is a funny card, but maybe not necessarily what we need in certain matchups. I don't know. I feel like I maybe am a little bit too hard on this card, but this card does hose certain heroes if you can like resolve it pretty early. One day we'll get to resolve this, and I'll get to claim that this is like the most broken attack in Marlyn or whatever, but maybe not today. Yeah, but I think it's gonna wrap it up for today. So thank y'all for watching, and I'll see y'all next time. And a special thank you to all the folks who decided it would be a good idea to give us $2 on Patreon. We really appreciate the support, but it's obviously never required.